Hello everybody and assalamu alaikum. And today's video will be part 2 of how to color skin. Let's get into it. Alrighty, since all my layers are now fixed, let's just hop into what I was talking about the other day, i.e. purple guy. You can color anything and make it look like skin, and the way that you would make this purple guy look like he has, probably I want this more saturated. The way that you would make this purple guy look like he has a normal skin is actually all dependent on what sort of background you put him in, because colors look different depending on what's going on in the background. They look different according to what's next to them, i.e. when I gave you the example of the two guys at the top, and I used the same skin tones on both of them, but it made the lighter guy look ashy. And if you don't know what ashy is, that just means that you're dehydrated. It was dehydrated equals desaturated in brown skin tones. So to make him look less ashy, we had to change the skin tones a little bit, and it made him look less ashy. And this is what we wound it up with, and this is just a variation of. This is what we wound up with. It's a variation of these here. I just fiddled around with the saturation of the highlight, and I actually used the first guy number 1. I used his base color for the guy number 2 shadow color, and that's how we got that. So next we will be going with purple guy here, and hopefully I got all this in the correct place this time. So like I said, to make anything look like you are giving it like a proper skin tone, you literally only have to, I'm gonna do his nose different than I did the other two's nose, just giving you different options, because where you put your shadows and your highlights determines how your character's face is actually shaped. Although lines can determine it too, lines are just like, they're just guides. It's not gonna be the end all be all of what your character's face is gonna be shaped like. So don't ever like get so caught up in like, oh my god, my line art looks like this, but it's not important. It's important, but it's not that important. It's not that crucial that your lines are perfect, because I normally will have very perfect lines, but as you can see, I won't say perfect. I'll have as close to perfect as I can get my lines to be, right? But in the end, it never actually matters, because I'll go over it and change what the shape looks like, all with the shadow and how I shade things, just because I, don't want it to look a certain way. Now I gave the examples with the two guys at the top. Let's go back up to them. With this guy, I gave 2 examples of how you can highlight on top of the cheek, the side. His right side made it a little rounder. His left side is a more sculptural look, and that makes his his cheeks a little more appley, right? It comes to a little mound. But the guy on the right, if you can tell, has very full cheeks. His cheeks doesn't come to an apple. His cheeks are just all spread out. He would have like what you would call chubby cheeks, as opposed to the guy on the left who has like cheeks like apple cheeks. As well as you can see the different shapes of the nose. This is the same character base, but I use different ways of highlighting and shading to make the nose shape differently. So as long as you follow the same basic principles of where shadows are supposed to be, on a face, and this is just like shadows from the front. These change depending on which angle your light is coming from, but I am only showing you what I do to do the character's shape from the front, right? Remember I told you shading in the middle of the eyebrows gives a prominent brow bone. Now I could start my shading down here by the side of the lip and then just have this entire space up here would be where I will highlight it, and it would give him very, very, very big round cheeks. Or I could do what I did last time and give him those apple cheeks that the first guy had. Right? And once I blend all of this out, you will see that it literally does not matter what your base color is, as long as your contrast between your highlight shade and your shadow shade, is, you know, big enough to where it actually makes a difference. Now I could also go into, this is different. I could also go into what I do when I'm doing a close-up on the eyes. I could show you that if that is something that you guys would be interested in, but that would be, I feel, an entirely different video because it would take up a lot. Because the other thing that I plan to cover today is working from a shadow shade, which would be him over here. He's very dark, very hard to see, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between the line work and his skin tone. And so we're going to be working from the darkest shade on him, but he'll still, if you have seen anybody with skin that dark in different lighting, they do look different. And so it helps to like, they still are as dark as they are. That's what I'm saying. They still are as dark as they are, but depending on where the light is hitting, it'll define the different shapes and planes of their faces. And that is because I know not that I'm privileged, I know a lot of dark people, but because I know so many, I've been able to study their faces without, them finding it weird, just kind of staring at their faces. And I've been able to figure that out that way. Blend this out. That's too much. Alright, as you can see, the deepest shadow right on the, like, it's right by the nose. You could also give somebody, other than giving them high cheekbones, you can give them those little divots inside of their cheek that way. It's not necessary, but you can do that, Now, for me to give somebody a purple skin tone, other than if I were working with an alien, which I do not do that. I don't do monsters or alien characters. But for me to give somebody a purple skin tone like this, it would mean that the environment that I put this character in would be like a dark space, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. It would be like a dark space. It would be a bit like if you're playing a video game and you go underwater and everything is just like have a slightly blue tinge. It's like that. So for me to give a character a cool toned skin like this is very cool compared to what I have been doing. Then that's probably way too much. Why am I doing this with a pencil? I usually do this with airbrush. It's easier to adjust how much I put with an airbrush. Anyways, I don't know why I did that. And then also there's the little, some people have this, that all that eyelid space. Everybody doesn't have that eyelid space. So I don't do this with every drawing of a face that I do, but some people have that little eyelid space. So now we're just gonna blend out. And then we're gonna put some color behind him to try to show you what I mean by it depends on the environment that you put him in. Now the reason that I don't normally add color with the pencil, because it's strong and I'm not one for the very blingy highlights. That is not my thing. But as you can see, well, blending this out, the way that I blend out these cheeks, as you probably can't tell, is that when I blend out the edges and I try to make the most concentrated and brightest part right in the middle. That way the cheekbone is literally the highest part of the face. The highest part of the face is usually the brighter part of the face, because that's where the light hits, because that's where it pushes out of the face the most. If that makes any sense to you guys, because I don't understand myself half the time, but there you go. There's my explanation. And I almost forgot the little highlights for the eyebrows. That's the wrong brush. Eyebrow highlights. There we go. Oops. As you can see, well, I hope you can see, that is how you create the planes of the face. Like I said, lips are an entirely different video, so we're not gonna do lips. Now, his highlights are very, very, very extreme. So normally what I do to take those back a little bit, and I just realized that I did all of that on the same layer. Normally what I do to take that back a little bit is turn down the density on my eraser, actually, and just pop. And in makeup terms, it would be a little bit like adding a setting powder or a mattifying powder on top. And as you can see, that changes very drastically what's going on here. Alrighty, so next, let me show you what I mean by the environment can change the way his skin tone looks. So let's go a darker blue, desaturated, down here, close to the purple. And let's just put that behind him. That is very different from something like a green, which is very contrasty and will not make that look like a natural skin tone. But if I even put him in like a purple environment, because his highlights are sort of pink, it also looks slightly unnatural. So one way that, if this is, a problem for you and you're still having issues with this, is what I do to make it all sort of come together as one cohesive piece. Like, you want the skin to look natural, but you don't want to use natural tones, is that you use the same shade and highlight shade for the clothes and other background elements. And if those shades don't work for you, adjust them, but they still need to stay in the range of whatever skin tone you decided to choose. That way, everything is cohesive, everything works together with each other, and that's how I achieve that, if that makes sense. Want an unnatural skin tone? Make sure you stick to the normal planes of the face. Use whatever skin tone you want, and you want him to look like the environment is what's having an effect on his skin tone. Use the same shade and highlight colors that you use on the face on the other elements in the drawing. Alrighty. Next guy. So we are working on him, and honestly speaking, I picked all these skin tones from him. That's where we started. Is before I turned the camera on, that's where these skin tones came from. So I can actually probably just take that. There's probably a very much easier way to do this. Take that, go there, bow. As you can see, even the darkest tone in this little swatch is too light for his shadow. Now, you could either do one or two things. Use black as the shadow, which I'm not very fond of doing unless that's just the goal. But it's just really hard to see on a computer, especially it's just really hard to see on the computer, to be honest with you. Like, if you saw it in real life, it wouldn't be that hard to see, but it's extremely hard to see on a computer, especially if you don't have enough contrast. But we're gonna work with highlights first. That's what we're gonna do. Now, I'm looking at this against his skin tone, and I'm actually not liking that. So, we're gonna go with what I said before, which is, if something is not working for a different skin tone, play with the saturation. So, I have played with the saturation. We're gonna use something like that, and that might seem drastic, just like, what are you doing? That doesn't match. Hush up and watch. You just need to blend it out. That is it. See what that has done to his face? I blended it out. Again, we're gonna do the little oval shape. Okay? Now we're gonna blend that out again. Look at that. And honestly, working this way, most times, I'm gonna make his bridge really wide. To be honest, I'm very fond of that sort of a bridge, the bridge of the nose shape. And this might sound funny. It looks padded. It looks really comfy, if that makes any sense at all. It looks comfy. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me. It looks really comfortable. Hit that right there. This is what I mean by working from a shadow shade. And to be honest with you, you could probably do an entire face with just the base and the highlight if you really, truly wanted to do that. Gonna do this right here. Actually, just do a shape like that. Like I said, you can do very, very different highlight shades and change the shape of the face. And I'm going to show you what this does to the face. These are just some different highlight shades. And like I said, another thing, just look for some very good tips in very unlikely places, because I figured a lot of this out by watching makeup videos. I don't even wear makeup. I really don't. But I'll be darned if these girls that wear all this makeup don't know the planes of their own faces. They know what they be talking about. It's a good place to find inspiration and knowledge, honestly. I apologize if you didn't catch any of that. My computer just skipped. I'm having issues with it right now. And I'm just working down the face. Actually, I want more highlight right on that edge. Right there. Blend that out. Still not getting what I got, what I wanted. That's good enough. Good enough. Alright. It's not exactly, but it's good enough. Now, depending on how far out you want his mouth to be or her mouth to be, will determine how much highlight you put on the top of the lip. Some people's mouths don't protrude out of their face at all. So, for some of your drawings, you might not even want to add this little bit down here. Now highlight on the chin. I was finna say cheek. Wow. Now, this might look a little sunburnt to you. If I had enough time, I could probably make it look pretty nice. But I don't. So, what you could do instead is take the base color, make that very highly saturated, and as you can see, it makes a difference as far as using it as a shadow shade, right? And this way, that he still keeps his the richness of his face. And I can put the shadows in different places this time, because like I said, everybody's face has a different shadow plane. I'm getting lost in my own work here. But as you can see, once you blend that out, that gives a really, really rich and full of color skin tone. You could probably only see what I mean, like closer to the nose here, because that's where most of the work is done. But it gives a very, very, very rich skin tone. We're not gonna leave him like this. We're gonna finish him off just like everyone else. We're there. Because that's what's looking weird. Is that I'm not finishing him off like all the other ones that I did. You can even, like I said, give him that shade underneath the eyes if you really wanted to. It's not really my thing. I don't normally give people Now, I might need to adjust his highlight shade just a smidgen because that was my laptop dying. Let's grab some plugs, shall we? Oh no. But yeah. I think I messed myself up with the cheeks, honestly. But either way, we could also play around with the saturation of his highlights, because that is the key. You could tone it down a whole lot going like that. Add the highlights back if you took back too much, because I think that's what my issue was, is that I took back too much of the highlights here and it didn't blend smoothly. Here we go. There we go. Now it's starting to look a lot better because I flubbed it up on my own trying to rush at the end, but that's not necessary. I didn't need to rush. Just cut out what I don't want. Or speed up parts. Give him a very defined cupid's bow if I want. It's my drawing. This is what I mean by taking some back with your eraser. Utilize your eraser, people. It'll work wonders. There. Now, to be honest, what might even still be a little jarring is that his bass tone doesn't have enough saturation. And that's on me. I did that. But, oop, that's not what I meant to do. Just simply by changing the bass tone, and that might be a little too much. It can do a lot. So if you have the option on your program to just flip through colors the way that I do, just by locking the layer and then changing the color. As you can see, I chose something more saturated. This is much more red, but it is still the same value, meaning the same darkness. It could do wonders. But all of these pieces, I used this pretty much same principle. I didn't shade a couple of their necks fully, but I pretty much use the same principles. Study faces, study the planes of the faces, see how the light hits certain shaped faces, and it'll inform you better on how to shade characters. I hope I didn't like trip over my own feet at the end there. It's a little harder, I will say, to blend off these bright colors on a darker skin tone. Not because darker skin is harder to do. It really honestly isn't. It's just you need to do it differently. Like I said, I didn't necessarily need a shadow shade for this. I really didn't. But to do darker skin tones, you need a highlight shade. You need a really good highlight shade. And I have to switch mine around a little bit. And that happens in the middle of drawings. It happens quite often. There we go. That looks better. It happens quite often, right in the middle of drawings. I'll stop, I'll look back, and I'm like, he looked kind of ashy. I need to do something about that. And more often than not, the problem with with your shades is that they're just not saturated enough. Why is that? Is that they're just not saturated enough. When you're doing darker skin tones or just warmer skin tones in general, like not necessarily a peachy, pinky, bright skin tone, you're gonna need to do more saturated colors because darker skin tones are more rich. Most people think just because they're doing a darker skin tone that it's just gonna be dark. Like, oh my god, just gotta drag it down to the darker side. Like, no, because that'll make somebody look dead and ashy. You gotta make it highly saturated so that the skin tone looks more rich. I have more practice with my own skin tone just because that's just what I started with. I started in the middle like the first guy, and then I broadened my spectrum. I'm still not very good at doing light skin tones, but applying the same principles and adjusting your saturation on at any stage can do worlds, of good to make your skin look like skin. So that's all I have to say on that subject. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope I did not ramble on. And I guess that's part 2. That's the last part. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. And with that makes the end of the video. I don't know if I'll do any tutorials for a while, unless you guys ask for it. I've been asked a lot about how I color skin because people seem to notice that I put extra care into it. So that's why we have the two videos that I had to break it down into 2 videos. It was originally going to be one, but anyways, that's besides the point. Subscribe to me, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I actually post more on TikTok than Instagram, but you'll see my art in full on Instagram. Shop at my shop. I got stickers, I got prints, I got sweatshirts, soon to be t-shirts, and if I haven't already come out with my the new sticker drop yet, it will be out soon. Bye.